Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for this new edition of Business Africa. On our show today, spotlight on the Nkok Special Economic Zone in Gabon and the new European zero deforestation regulations impact on wood processing in Africa. But first, let's get on with the show with our top stories today. Towards a greener economy, this is Gabon's strategy with the Nkok Special Economic Zone.
3 trees are collected per hectare for several reasons. The first reason is that Gabon's forest is relatively rich. There are approximately 400 different tree species per hectare.
Spotlight on Nigeria's agripreneurs, startups that intend to reduce unemployment.
We are thinking of making it big, being an international company, making sure our product gets to all the supermarkets in Nigeria first, before we can think about exporting to African countries and maybe the world at large.
A century-old algae to invigorate yourself. This is the challenge of spirulina, a microalgae discovered on the shores of Lake Chad and now famous throughout the world.
We realized that it was a miraculous product. It was extraordinary to see the under fives getting their strength back so quickly.
And we open this edition with Gabon, where I was a few weeks ago. Since 2012, the G-says has been attracting a lot of attention. The special economic zone in the Nkok zone of Libreville covers 1,126 hectares and clearly illustrates the challenges and opportunities behind the transformation of natural resources. This public-private partnership between the Gabonese state and the Singaporean group Olam and Africa Finance Corporation aims to offer companies a framework that is conducive to industrialization and a one-stop shop to reduce procedures. I had the opportunity to visit this multi-sector industrial park, which in 2020 was ranked the best special economic zone in the world in the wood sector. Take a look.
We are in Libreville, in the Gabon Special Economic Zone, the G says. To fight deforestation, the country has put in place strong policies to preserve its forests that cover more than 85% of its territory, but also special facilities such as the G says, with the objective of creating green value chains that will contribute to the development of the country and its inhabitants. A public-private partnership between Arise IIP, a joint venture between AFC and Olam, and the government of Gabon, which led to the creation of the G-says in 2010, which was above all a long-term endeavor to create a legislative framework as well as operational infrastructures allowing companies to start manufacturing in a matter of days.
So we work with the governments to create the policy framework, what I call as the soft infrastructure. The second part is we build the hard infrastructure. The hard infrastructure is about roads, water, electricity, effluent treatment plant. So when as an investor you come, you have all the common infrastructure ready, you can plug and play and start your industry.
An industrialization that aims to operate in harmony with the environment and the tropical rainforest, vital for indigenous and local populations, and which also serves as an essential habitat for endangered species. So, how to exploit these forests and maintain a low rate of deforestation? The G-says wood platform seems to have the answer. In Gabon, about 1 to 3 trees are cut per hectare, so we can't really talk about deforestation. 3 trees are collected per hectare for several reasons. The first reason is that Gabon's forest is relatively rich. There are approximately 400 different tree species per hectare, and the market focuses on a small range of species. So due to this, we are forced to take a small number of trees per hectare. Not to mention that in the Gabonese law, the minimum diameter of exploitation of a tree is fixed, and generally it is fixed beyond 70 centimeters at breast height. The Special Economic Zone brings together 144 companies from 16 countries operating in 70 industrial sectors, including a cluster dedicated to wood processing, which brings together 84 companies. Among these companies, Africa Panel View, which recycles wood waste to create a more virtuous production cycle. We recycle wood waste in the economic zone, and after recycling we have our particle board, which is a substitute for plywood and is made from glue and wood particles. So after collecting the waste, there are more transformations: the cutting, grinding, drying, segregation, the molding of the panels, and at the end we have the final panel, which is compacted and we have several calibrations. It depends on external demand.
Nous avons plusieurs calibrages, ça dépend de la demande extérieure. Donc, nos produits,
So our products are used in particular in office furniture, in the manufacture of tables, doors and windows, the interior design of houses, parquet, and many other products that can be obtained from these particle boards.
avoir à partir de ce panneau de particules.
With 3.4 million cubic meters produced each year, Gabon has become Africa's leading producer and exporter of tropical plywood and the world's second largest exporter. The country intends to go further in adding value to its wood products by transforming the GCES into a center for the manufacture of made-in-Gabon furniture, but also the export of premium furniture. An example here with Akiba, which mainly exports its very high-end products towards the United States.
Akiba is a premium furniture brand made in Gabon. We currently export to the United States, Florida, where we have just opened and inaugurated a showroom in Miami. We aim to open a second showroom here in Libreville, and in addition to the one we have here in Nkok. So we mainly produce premium furniture. We are very committed to everything related to social environment and also focus on made in Gabon, and we also have Akiba, our art-related brand.
However, there also remains the question of the attractiveness of the wood sector vis-à-vis the younger generation. Open days are organized in the economic zone for students precisely for them to discover the various opportunities in the industry.
Students came to learn about the different trades at the GCES, in particular the transformation of wood, such as the different trades related to wood processing, whether at the final level or the standard level. I came normally to see how everything is being done in relation to wood processing, and I was very happy with the result here at the GCES.
A flourishing sector which still has to overcome some obstacles. One of them, which is crucial for the timber industry, is the independent certification. TRACER, the Independent Timber Certification and Traceability Office in Nkok, recognized by the European Union, was temporarily suspended by the Gabonese authorities in March 2023. TRACER was reinstated a few weeks ago, but its suspension is proof of ongoing problems with the regulation within this highly coveted timber industry in Gabon.
And this topic around wood traceability is already at the heart of the news. In a few months, the new zero deforestation regulation adopted last month by the European Parliament should come into force. But what exactly is it about? Well, stringent due diligence rules for companies importing palm oil, cattle, soya, coffee, cocoa, timber and rubber, as well as derived products, into Europe. And to talk about the impact of this new European regulation on the timber sector in Africa, Guillaume Lescuyer, a researcher at the CIRAD, is joining me. Guillaume Lescuyer, thank you for joining me on Business Africa. Can you explain what this regulation will now require from countries considered at risk when it comes to deforestation?
Donc c'est un règlement qui s'applique aux pays qui vont...
So it's a regulation that applies to countries wishing to export their commodities to the European Union, but also countries of the European Union themselves to avoid commercial discrimination. We will have 18 months to implement it for large companies and 2 years for small companies. This means that a European importer who brings in wood, palm oil or natural rubber will have to do everything in his power to demonstrate that the product he brings in has not generated deforestation or forest degradation.
Voilà, c'est la principale
This is the main measure, and it's all the more vigorous for countries considered to be at high risk of deforestation because the controls will be more regular and the fines more costly. More criteria verification will be required than for low-risk countries or those considered to have almost no risk of deforestation.
comme presque nul de déforestation.
And concretely, does this imply traceability efforts?
Alors le règlement européen, il impose aussi, et c'est l'autre...
So the European regulation also imposes traceability of products at the land parcel level, and this is the other key measure. What does this mean? Well, it means that we will have to trace where the product was produced and harvested, whether it's wood, cocoa, palm oil, etc. Very few traceability systems offer this today, especially public traceability systems, which are less demanding. Exporters to the European Union will have to set up this type of traceability system, which starts at the farmer's land parcel level, and hence we have a strong starting point. So, we know how to do it. Some private standards, such as FSC for wood, RSPO for palm oil, and Rainforest Alliance for cocoa, have it. But the real difficulty is the cost. Who is going to bear the cost of traceability, which can be expensive when you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of small parcels to inventory to determine if they can export their products to the EU?
But with these risks of additional costs, isn't the implementation compromised?
If we start implementing this regulation with many things that have yet to be discussed, we may have some hurdles on the way, because the producing companies will be reluctant or even resistant to implementing this new European regulation, and may be tempted to turn to markets that are less cautious about deforestation, forest degradation, or even social consideration. There is a risk, of course. The European Union is well aware of this, as is the Commission and the delegations. A certain number of proposals of support measures are on the table, and this number should increase. We are talking in particular about the famous forestry partnerships that the European Union set in motion a few months ago with, if I'm not mistaken, 8 tropical countries, including the Congo, for example, for Central Africa. This means that the European Union will have to set up some kind of consultation, or at least medium-term support, to help the countries implement this ambitious regulation.
Guillaume Lescuyer, thank you very much. Who will inherit the mills of the French group Castel in Togo, Congo, Gabon and Cameroon? In April, the French group announced it wanted to divest its milling business. Since then, there has been a flurry of suitors. First of all, there are the companies specializing in agri-foodstuffs, Seaboard and Amaropa, and the Moroccan group For Afrique, and the Singaporean company Olam. Trading groups outside Africa are also interested in taking over the milling activities. We remain in the agri-food sector with young agribusiness startups determined to combine tradition and progress. At a time when Africa has ambitions for agro-industrial hubs, we went to Nigeria, in Ibadan more precisely, to meet young entrepreneurs who have set up their businesses in a sector that is still buoyant despite the economic difficulties of their country. Take a look.
How's this for a perfect way to keep your head above water? Entrepreneur Ayodeju Idowu started an aquaculture farm in Nigeria's Ibadan region. This trained botanist learnt his trade here thanks to the Tropical Agriculture Institute's business incubator. 3 years ago, the institute put up $50,000 to help Idowu and his associates get started.
We make use of one abandoned pond. Then during our own survey, we realized there's a particular abandoned pond somewhere, and we decided, because of our interest, we decided to take it upon ourselves to redredge, to dress the pond, and then that's how we started the business in 2014.
The catfish farm was so successful that Idowu had to employ Ridwan to help him. Ridwan's parents could not afford to pay for his studies. Now the 21-year-old can help his family.
I was jobless for more than 9 months, sitting back at home, doing nothing before I gained this job. And after gaining this job has added more value to my life, because I've been able to send my brother to university, I pay my sister school fees, and also I'm sending myself to Polytechnic of Ibadan here. And also, it has also aided me. The money I'm getting from this job, I also used to get a motorbike, of which I'm using to transport myself from here to my school.
4 in 10 young Nigerians are out of work. Since its creation in 2012, the incubator has provided training and mentoring for 500 young agribusiness entrepreneurs from several African countries. 80 came from the Ibadan region alone. The institute is spearheading the rebirth of the sector.
Quand ils vous présentent leur business plan.
They present their business plans and know exactly when they will start making profits. They understand marketing and how to make the most of opportunities in the agricultural sector. They combine markets and social and industrial factors. We didn't know how to do that before. The young partners at Agri-food, an agribusiness micro-company set up just 6 months ago, already have 6 employees. Their flagship product, cassava crisps, marketed under the name Tidbits, have been a victim of their own success. Demand is outstripping cassava supply.
We're doing it. You just have to do the right thing.
The raw materials, it's not easy to get the raw materials, most especially the cassava flour. It's very scarce in Nigeria here. And we are trying to get more supplier that will be supplying us the cassava flour.
For example, we've not been able to satisfy demand. We produce about 500 dozens of tidbits here on a weekly basis, and we have a market demand of about 2,000. So we supply within and outside Ibadan. We supply in Ogun State, in the southern western part of Nigeria. So what we are actually doing to solve that problem is actually to set up a business in Ogun State, Nigeria, that can actually satisfy that market and while the production here to satisfy the Ibadan environs.
These young entrepreneurs are already making healthy profits. Turnover at Idowu's aquaculture farm was several $1,000s after the first 6 months of production, and the young company leader has set his sights even higher.
Our plan for the future is to have a replicate of what we currently have now in another location a bit far from here. We want to situate our business in the geopolitical zones of this country so that we can invest all the money in the country.
We are thinking of making it big, being an international company, making sure our product gets to all the supermarkets in Nigeria first before we can think about exporting to African countries and maybe the world at large.
The young entrepreneurs here at the African Development Bank organised Agripreneurs Forum share a common goal of feeding Africa first and foremost. They also intend to play an active role in the thriving sector seeking greater added value by processing African agricultural produce. This growing awareness of opportunities to be seized will depend, to a great extent, on providing adequate training and mentoring for the continent's future captains of industry.
Welcome to the second part of our show. Kenya, an innocent bystander to the global debt crisis. These were the words of Pristalina Georgieva, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, during her recent visit to Nairobi. She expressed confidence in Kenya's repayment capacity and fiscal policy. This is a precious support for the Nairobi government in a difficult context. A new loan of $2 billion is in fact envisaged to meet the country's debt repayments. U.S. President Joe Biden has signed an executive order authorizing sanctions against Sudan. It is a threat that could become a reality in the absence of a lasting ceasefire. The country is still plagued by armed forces led by 2 rival generals. The UN Refugee Agency predicts an exodus of at least 800,000 people, and the World Food Programme has estimated that $13 million worth of food supplies destined for Sudan has been looted since the conflict began last month. As a result of this terrible conflict, Arabic gum exporters are seeing a sharp slowdown in trade. Arabic gum is a key emulsifier for the world's food industry, for example, the business of major groups such as Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. It comes from a sap exudate and is harvested mainly in Saharan Africa. Sudan is a key country where Arabic gum harvesting and trading have been supporting thousands of families. How can you boost your immune system with a microalgae? It's possible with spirulina. a microalgae that has become very popular since the 70s. At the time, it was found as dry patties sold in the markets around Lake Chad. But its consumption probably dates back to the 9th century in Africa. Today, microalgae are mainly cultivated in China, but several African countries such as Benin intend to continue its exploitation, notably to fight malnutrition. Take a look.
Discovered in Lake Chad in 1950, this algae is something of a miracle worker. Just 5 grams a day taken as a food supplement will cure a severely malnourished child in a matter of weeks. The algae, known as spirulina, has more than its fair share of vitamins, minerals, oligoelements, and proteins. It also regulates cholesterol levels and boosts the immune system of HIV/AIDS patients. Added to that, the precocious plant will increase resistance to fluent malaria, Africa's #1 killer. Countries such as Benin soon realized the algae's amazing potential. At the SPU, or Spirulina Production Unit, Roger Kublenu Adunkpe and his team are cultivating the plant to help solve a particularly pressing problem. 43% of under 5s in Benin suffer from malnutrition.
Using imported spirulina, we cured 30 or so children in as many days. We realized that it was a miraculous product. It was extraordinary to see the under 5s getting their strength back so quickly. As we studied it further, we saw that it was also good for older people, athletes, pregnant women. In fact, just about everyone of any age benefits from taking spirulina.
As spirulina grows in water at 25 degrees Celsius, Africa has the perfect conditions for large-scale production. But warm water is not enough. Successful cultivation demands hard work, strictly observed conditions, and sufficient resources to deal with problems such as storms that disturb its growth. There are also problems with poor infrastructure, an unreliable power supply, and a lack of equipment. Problems that must be solved if spirulina production is to be optimized.
La spiruline, c'est une microalgue. Elle est photosynthétique.
Spirulina is photosynthetic microalgae. It can be grown in basins in the open, but it needs the right climatic conditions, namely the right amount of sun and rain.
The unit currently produces 2 to 3 kilograms of algae a day. This is then transformed into food supplements, or yogurts and biscuits. The SPU laboratories also produce toiletries such as soap and shampoo that are made from spirulina. New products such as body lotion, salad dressing, and fruit juices are also being developed. There's a ready market for the products, with demand from households, wholesalers, supermarkets, and chemists in Benin. Once this demand is satisfied, the SPU hopes to conquer markets in the sub-region, starting with neighboring Togo. To achieve this goal, production needs to be tripled or even quadrupled.
If all our available basins were producing spirulina, we would be producing 2 to 2.5 tons a year. At the moment, output is 800 kilos, because our production facilities are worn out, and we don't have the resources to renew infrastructure. We're running at a third of our capacity, producing just enough to satisfy domestic demand.
Serious investment is needed, above all to install solar panels, to no longer be dependent on an unreliable power supply, and to reduce energy costs. Marian Lihuhento evaluates and monitors projects for power electrical generation.
De toute façon, il y aura un investissement quand même à faire.
Money clearly needs to be invested. There is a lot of machinery on the site and a lot of power-hungry equipment.
Spirulina production is spreading across the continent, and Burkina Faso already has several farms installed with help from associations and humanitarian NGOs. But even a miracle plant needs support from partners to flourish. With sub-Saharan nations spending 40% of their resources on healthcare, it would be a profitable venture.
Well, that's it for today. Business Africa is over. I'll see you next week, same time, same channel for Initiative Africa. I will be hosting Gagan Gupta, the co-founder of Arise IAP, which is also the operator of the Nkok zone in Gabon, whom I met in Libreville. In the meantime, you can watch this show again on our website, africaonair.com, and follow us on all our social media channels. Feel free to share, like, and comment using the hashtag Business Africa. Have a great week, and until next time, goodbye.